There's something truly paradoxical about the human condition. You see, we are simultaneously fragile and formidable. It doesn't take much to wound a human being, emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually. And yet, history is a record of men and women who, despite relentless attempts to be brought down, somehow managed to rise, not just to survive, but to transcend. And that phenomenon should not be dismissed as coincidence. It demands explanation. Now, when I hear a statement like there was plenty of motivation to take me out, I immediately interpret it as the reality of targeted adversity. Maybe it was jealousy. Maybe it was betrayal. Perhaps it was life itself delivering blow after blow. But let's get one thing straight. The presence of resistance is not evidence of failure. It's evidence of significance. When your presence threatens chaos, chaos often responds with fury. The world is not a neutral place. It's a battleground between potential and destruction. And your presence in that equation has consequences. So let's talk about what it actually means to be someone that adversity targets. If people or systems or even circumstances are trying to dismantle you, it may be because your very existence challenges their assumptions. Perhaps your growth, your refusal to comply, your insistence on transformation, these things irritate the frameworks that prefer you to stay small, predictable, manageable. That's not paranoia, that's observation. And if you ignore that, you may be choosing comfort over truth. But now we move to the second part. It just didn't work. And that's the part that's not only fascinating, but educational. Why didn't it work? What is the psychological structure, the philosophical stance, or the internal framework that allows someone to endure what others crumble under? The answer lies in a very ancient principle, the cultivation of meaning as a defense against suffering. Viktor Frankl observed this in the concentration camps. Nietzsche spoke of it when he said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that idea that your ability to sustain yourself against adversity is linked to whether or not you believe your suffering serves a higher order is a cornerstone of resilience. In simpler terms, if your life is structured around something trivial, comfort, attention, the praise of others, you will break. Those things collapse the moment adversity arrives. But if your life is oriented toward meaning, toward responsibility, toward the idea that what you do matters not just for you, but for the world around you, then you become structurally sound. You become, to use biblical imagery, like a house built on rock, not sand. So what is the educational insight here? It's this: the human being, when rightly ordered, is not merely resistant to destruction, they are an agent of transformation. That means every time you were supposed to give up and didn't, every time you were meant to collapse and chose instead to stand, you were participating in a larger story, one where good defies evil, where order defeats chaos, and where your existence is a protest against despair. You weren't spared by accident. You weren't simply lucky. You outlasted it because something inside of you refused to bow, and that something isn't ego, it's deeper than ego, it's purpose. It's the alignment of your being with something transcendent. And that's not just motivational talk, it's existential fact. Now, what people often don't understand, and this is critical, is that staying upright doesn't mean you didn't bleed. It doesn't mean you didn't stagger or cry or question your sanity. The path of endurance is rarely dignified in appearance. It's gritty, it's dark, sometimes it's quiet, but it's real, it's authentic. And the authenticity of suffering met with meaning is one of the few truly redemptive forces in the world. So if you were targeted, if there was effort and energy invested in your collapse, and you're still here, you owe it to yourself to ask why. Why didn't it work? What protected you? What sustained you? And what are you going to do with the fact that you are still standing? Because now you're dangerous in the best possible way. You're someone who's been through hell and returned with a gift. You know the landscape of pain, and yet you speak of hope. You've experienced betrayal, and yet you commit to integrity. That makes you an anomaly. That makes you necessary. Education is not merely about acquiring knowledge. It's about transformation. It's about becoming someone who can perceive the world accurately, act courageously, and speak truth, even when silence is easier. And you, the one who couldn't be taken out, you are now responsible for embodying that education. You are now a living curriculum in resilience, in meaning, in resistance to nihilism. So walk forward not just with confidence, but with reverence. Because if there was enough motivation to destroy you and you're still breathing, still thinking, still striving, then you are not a victim of fate. You are a witness to the power of purpose. And that's worth everything.